The Politicrat Daily Podcast online store is hotting up with more items to choose from. On your travels to the store at the-politicrat.myshopify.com, you will find 66 and counting. 66, at least 66 different products, all designed by yours truly. So come one, come all, to the Politicrat Daily Podcast online store at the-politicrat.myshopify.com. Really good stuff there. I think you'll love it. So get ready to go and have this great experience online. Bye now. Thank you very much for your support. Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Saturday, February the 13th, 2021. On this episode of the Politicrat, the Bachelor race. Yes, I'm actually going to be talking about the reality TV show, The Bachelor. But that is the starting point of this episode. And that is not where this episode will end. Keep listening right after this. Welcome back. Well, The Bachelor. That would never be a word that would utter my lips or be even discussed on this podcast. The Bachelor? Really? But I didn't watch. I've never watched a single second of any episode of The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, or anything else, that deals with reality TV, because reality TV is scripted, unlike this podcast. Reality TV is a bunch of nonsense. Reality TV is a waste of my time, maybe yours too. I don't know if you watch any of this, but it is, put it this way, every moment spent watching reality TV is a moment that you could be doing something life-affirming. And I'm not saying that you have to work every second of every single day. That's not what I'm saying at all, dear listener. I'm simply saying that reality TV is a waste of your valuable, precious time. You might say that this podcast is. But I dare say that you wouldn't be listening to it if you felt that way. So why do I even start with The Bachelor? Well, in the Los Angeles Times on February the 12th, that was the date, that would have been yesterday, Greg Braxton had a story that was published at the Los Angeles Times, on the Los Angeles Times, and the title of the story, The Bachelor's First Season with a Black Lead is Swept into a Firestorm Over Race. Now, I know that Greg Braxton did not write that headline that I just read out to you of his own story. Many people assume that when they read a story that they just feel that, some people assume this, that the writer of the story also wrote the headline. That is never true. There are headline writers who write that headline every time. Now, I'm going to read it to you again. And I want you to think about whether there is something that is problematic about the title that I'm about to read. Something in the title that feels wrong to you, or you don't see anything wrong with. The Bachelor's first season with a black lead is swept into a firestorm over race. A firestorm over race. Well, I look at that headline. I don't know what you think. What do you think about that headline? Something wrong with it? Not wrong with it? A firestorm over race. Those 4 words. In fact, the last 2 words, over race. You know what I think's going on in that headline before I get to my main point of this particular portion? That headline is terribly dishonest and dismissive, isn't it? Over race? Isn't it about over whiteness? Over white dominance? Isn't it about over what people call white supremacy? There is nothing supreme. That's why I really don't like that term, and I try not to use it. This is about white dominance. This is about whiteness. This is about a system of whiteness and institutionalized anti-black racism. That is what that headline should somehow fit together. And if I was going to reread, actually, if I were the headline writer at the Los Angeles Times, here's how that headline would read. The Bachelor's first season with a black lead is swept into a firestorm about white dominance and a system of anti-black racism. How about that for a headline? That is not a problematic headline at all. It's the truth. And what that headline does is reframe the whole context of the story that will follow into its proper place. And that proper place is a system of white dominance and institutionalized anti-blackness. That is the proper headline and the proper context. And that is the truth. Because The Bachelor, as far as I know, has been on for what, 10, 15, 20 years? Whoever has watched The Bachelor who happens to be listening to me will be able to adequately, more than ably tell me how long this series has been going on for. The Bachelor, the Bachelorette, you can tell me who those among you who watch. Now, the fact that this is the first season with a black lead in The Bachelor, and I believe there has been the same in The Bachelorette, once, a black woman, once, if I'm not mistaken, maybe not at all, but someone, again, who watches these reality TV shows can correct me. But here's the point of why I'm getting at this headline and the way it's written by the headline writer at the Los Angeles Times. The mere fact that after all these years of The Bachelor, however many years it has been, that it's been on television here in the United States, and I'm sure it's in other countries too. But here in the US, the mere fact that after years of this show, in 2020 or 2021, you finally have a black man as the Bachelor, really? That should tell you that that headline that the LA Times has is a bunch of garbage. It's garbage. It's gabbage. Because the headline really should be, The headline that I just read out to you. The Bachelor's first season with a black lead is swept into a firestorm about white dominance and anti-blackness. Because not having a black man as a bachelor to begin with on your show is anti-black racism on its face. Literally on its face. On its white face. This is the system. We need to talk, dear listener, about how we talk about anti-black racism and systemic whiteness and white dominance. Those are the words of the language that we should be using. Why? Well, that's a pretty simple answer to that question. It is because you must examine, confront, and completely overrun and overturn that system in which all of this comes about. This isn't in a vacuum. This is not in a vacuum. As James Baldwin once said, James Baldwin said this on a number of occasions. We have got to stop talking in this bizarre language, this silly, immature language that we speak about things like this. This isn't some throwaway conversation. You have to treat conversations like this with TLC, but not only with TLC, with forcefulness, with passion. You can't sit around here talking about subjects like this, like you're at some little tea gathering on a Sunday afternoon. This is not what this is. This ain't a cocktail party thing. This is about the very existence of a people. And you cannot treat that with kid gloves. So that's where I look at that headline and I just shake my head and say, that's the first wrong move in this conversation. I think, dear listener, that there is a lot of conversational chess going on. And by the way, I love chess. I don't play it as often as I used to, but I do love chess. Why? Strategy, moves, movement, thinking, making moves 7 moves ahead of your opponent. Kind of like the system. It's already moving. And as I've said before, and I said it just last month on this podcast, white America is in deep doo-doo. I am telling you, deep doo-doo. And I don't think that the vast majority of white people even realize this. They're looking at Trump and thinking that's what the trouble is. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And the January 6th terror attack was just the tip of the iceberg. This system has really outlived its usefulness to those who feel that it has some use. And now there are some tectonic plates that are being tickled, not ruptured, tickled. And they are being tickled by people who have had enough of this. And it is happening in so many different little ways. But those little ways coalesce into big, large, structural things. And maybe that's not happening yet. But there are things that are beginning to happen here. You are seeing increased black and brown participation in voting. You are seeing the mobilization of black people. You are seeing the mobilization of brown people. You're seeing coalitions develop between black and brown people and native people. And you're seeing some progressives, and I mean true progressives. I don't mean these corporate progressives. I don't mean these folk who wave their flag and say they're progressive and they're not. Some of the ones here, by the way, in San Francisco who go with the moneyed classes. The moneyed progressive. I'm not talking about them. That's why when you say progressive to me, you have to define it. Because progressive to me is someone who wants to move forward and believes in forward progress. You are seeing coalitions. But there is so much more that must be done. The system is not going to lie down and say, it's all yours, come on in. We've had our 1,000-year run, 500-year run, 600-year run. It's not going to do that. It will find ways to stay intact and stay relevant. And one of the ways that happens is through the corporate news media. One of the most powerful influences over you and me and everyone we know. Even if you don't listen to it. And I have often told you that I do not listen to it anymore. With the exception being Sky News, which is owned by Comcast, by the way. American company, UK news network. And C-SPAN, which is really a public channel that is carried on corporate cable systems, obviously. Comcast is one of those. It's a public interest channel. And now you see that ads are sponsoring that now on the online edition of cspan.org. You can see those ads. Before you even watch something, you'll see an ad pop up now. That never used to be the case. But aside from those two examples, I don't watch any of this stuff. Because as Bree Newsom so always accurately says, these are avenues for the further, and I'm paraphrasing her, very, very roughly paraphrasing her. These are avenues for the continued white dominance and control. The systemic anti-blackness, the systemic white dominance and whiteness. And it will be someone like a Bill Maher, who I detest. And I've told you, if you listen to this podcast, that Bill Maher is nothing but a racist, an anti-black racist, and obviously someone who hates Muslims as well. And he's a self-hating person as well. He hates who he is. He's half Irish and half Jewish. And I think he hates himself. I really do. And I think he's a damn misogynist too, as well as a damn racist. He's definitely both of those. I would never, not that, who am I to go on his show? If he invited me, I would never, ever accept. Never. And I don't care if I have things to sell on a show. I would never accept. Pig. Rude, vile pig. I would never go on his show. It's not about me, but that's how I think about this and feel about this. And people like Bill Maher, oh, I'm the lefty kind of guy. I'm the corporate lefty. Ah, ha, 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 ha. And then I can say N on the air. Yeah, right. And I can bring Milo on, and I can bring that one on, and I can bring the other on. But I'm the liberal guy, yeah. No. We can't have this anymore. Right? None of this both sidesisms garbage. Both sides. Both sides is destructive. And all sides of a system of whiteness destroy and act to destroy black and brown people and native people. If you want a both sides, that's where your both sides is, Bill, Donald, and anybody else in the Republican Party. I'm not even going to get to that. I hope you did call those Republican senators, though. 202-225-3121. I don't care what these folks tell you they're going to do or not. You need to run out every ground ball. Or if you can't run, you need to keep shouting. Or if you can't shout, you need to pound your fist on a desk. If you can't do that, I want you to think about what is possible. And I want you to do that. And I want you to achieve it. The Bachelor erupted, so the LA Times writer says, Mr. Greg Braxton. And he talked about this. Matt James, actually, as I said, 2020 was when Matt James, the first black man to be the Bachelor. You know, this troubled history of the franchise. By the way, there's no troubled history of a franchise in a system of whiteness. That's what the system is doing. That's how the system works. It's working the way it was supposed to. There's no troubled history. Who's it troubled for? It ain't troubled for the system, because that's how the system works. It's working perfectly. Thank you very much indeed. Troubled history. See, again, language. And I keep telling you, dear listener, that language is extremely important. I think you know that. I'm not trying to be condescending and patronizing. You know very well, dear listener, as do I. And I think about language, and I've told you this before. Language is extremely important. Dates are extremely important. Dates in history are very, very important. We cannot develop short memories. As I quoted an archivist, a white archivist in South Carolina, I forget where, it was a government function. I forget the context. But it was actually from a documentary called Willie, about Willie O'Ree, the first black man to play in the National Hockey League. And that documentary, I think, is still available, certainly on Peacock. Oh, corporate network. Streaming outlet Peacock, and it may well be on Netflix as well. I am not 100% certain, but the documentary is called Willie. That's where I actually got that quote from, and I never did say that from a week or two ago, so shame on me, but I've just said it. So there. But to quote that archivist, this white archivist, who said, if we do not develop a long memory, we will probably have our freedom taken away from us. And that guy is correct. He's damn right. And some of us never had freedom to begin with. And as long as we use this language that we use, we will continue to be trapped in the fallacy of how you talk about these issues. About these issues. In fact, they're bigger than just issues. This is the structure you're living in. You have people who were dragged over here, our ancestors, in chains, taken forcibly from the continent that we loved, that we built, that we are. And our ancestors were brought here through a brutal, violent Middle Passage, a violent process. The United States, indeed, the United States, was birthed from violence. And a system birthed on violence cannot stand. It will not survive for much longer. It won't. That's why I'm telling you, dear listener, if you want to talk about a doomsday clock, that doomsday clock isn't necessarily for the entire planet. Oh, yes, I know. Climate is the doomsday clock, and I understand that. And the doomsday clock for the nuclear situation. Yes, situation indeed. It's more than that too. What I postulate here, dear listener, is that clock really is a clock that is a metaphor for the United States. Because I think that we are in deep doo-doo. I think that white America is in deep doo-doo. Did a whole episode on this, as I said earlier. You need to go back to the past month. I think it was in January of 2021. Or maybe December of 2020 that I did that episode. It was certainly in the last few weeks. This country, and we're seeing it right effing now. We're seeing it. And the language that we've used, no one's talking about meaningfully. See, here's the real deal here. We're having this impeachment trial. It is obvious what happened on January 6th. It is obvious that individual one incited it, wanted it, did nothing to stop it. And it's also obvious that there are at least a few Republicans who aren't going to vote to convict. And some of you, I can hear you now saying, oh, you're not going to have them convict him at all. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'll be right. I am still sticking to my prediction. And I am willing to lose my 100% record of correct predictions dating back to, when was it? November of last year. Although I made the predictions way before November. I made the prediction back in April of 2020 that Joe Biden would win. And I said he'd win by a landslide, which he did. He did. Electoral college and 7-point-something million votes. But it's very obvious what's happening. It's very obvious. And it's very, very clear. Nobody's calling for this. I mean, there are some people calling for it, but you're not going to see them on the corporate news media very much. Reparations. Where's the conversation in the media, the news media, corporate, about that? Oh, you can find it on some areas of the black press, some. Not even all the black press, not even half the black press is talking about reparations now. There are people like Roland Martin who has conversations about it, who has guests on who talk about it. You need to go and listen to Roland Martin. Roland S. Martin on Twitter, thank you very much. And his great show, Roland Martin Unfiltered. You can find it, and you will find it. Just go to Twitter and consult that brother. I'm actually going to put his link up. I have done in the past, but I'm going to do it again for Roland because he's very important. He's not the only one, but he's someone that I think you've got to start listening to and watching. Because you need to understand what's going on in black communities, different black communities. And no, we are not a monolith. That's why I said different black communities. But I am telling you, there's a corporatism that runs throughout everything. It is, and the more the system gets hip, the more it changes and stays the same. Oh, so you found us. Now we're going to put a black face there or a brown face there, but they're still going to spout our corporate line. Oh, we're going to have a so-called liberal. I can't stand that word, by the way. Or a progressive, but those people are still going to be supporting our line. And they're going to be funded by us. No one's talking about reparations in general, though, apart from Roland Martin and a few other people that I've not named. And it gets poo-pooed. How are you going to poo-poo reparations? How are you going to get anywhere in the United States of America if you do not first talk about reparations for black people? Huh? How are you ever going to get anywhere in this country? You can't even talk about that, let alone actually give reparations. Country's in trouble. It's in bare trouble. Bare ass trouble. Oh, and I didn't get to the Bachelor yet. The substance. I think reparations takes precedence, though, don't you? Welcome back. The Bachelor. The Bachelor is a microcosm of what is wrong. A real tiny, teeny tiny, very, very small microcosm of what is wrong. Yes, there are things that are right, but we can't be glorying over the things that are right when there is still so much wrong. We just can't. We can't talk about the fact that, well, in my opinion, not a fact, but in my opinion, that 20% of the white population of this country actually do care, in my view, about dealing with racism and actually becoming anti-racists. And I think that it's 20%. Some black people would say that it's less than that. Some black people would say it's more than that. Many white people would say it's more than that because they don't want to be seen, perhaps, as, really, are we like that? But I would say, yes, you are like that. What has happened is that comfort is the dangerous place that I think many white people in America and in England and across the UK and around the world in certain situations are in. Comfort. That you have a system that acts in your name or purports to act in your name. That certainly does act and will use you to maintain the dominance and control. And you acquiesce to that and you buy into it and you benefit from it. You benefit from it. So even if your ancestor individually did not contribute or did not enslave ancestors who look like me, my ancestors, you are deriving a benefit from what other people's ancestors, white ancestors, did. And as long as you are not actively acting against that system that has enslaved, then you are part of that system. If you see someone getting attacked on the street, and you know that shouting, "Hey, you," would be enough to stop that attack, would you do it? And if you see in pre-COVID times a coworker or hear a coworker say something racist, would you shout, "Hey, knock that off. That's enough. I don't want to hear any of your racist garbage"? Keep your racism in your head. This is a workplace. Would you say that? Or did you just laugh it off in the past? Or did you stay silent? Silence is violence. I saw white people carrying that sign around. Some of them wrote on their signs, or at least signs they carried, it said white silence equals white violence. I agree with that. I resemble that remark. I agree with the sentiment. But the signs have to be turned into action. The signs have to be turned into action from white communities. If you don't like what's going on, dear white America, then you've got to do something about this. And I say what's going on, I'm talking about the oppression. The oppression of black people, the oppression of brown people, of native people. If you don't like that, if you have a problem with it, and you have to start to act, and you know how you can do that? It's not just about joining up with black folk. It's really about you going to your communities and stirring up some shit with your uncle, with your father, with your brother, with your husband, with your aunt, with your sister, with your spouse, with your wife. Because you have people in your family who are like this, who are like, well, Donald Trump. You have a Donald Trump in your family. Now, he may not have raped or, 3 women at least. As horrifying and as evil as that is, the person you have in your family may not have ever done that. I will bet you that you have a family member who has said racist things, who has made anti-black racist remarks. Maybe you have. Maybe you have. What I want white people to do is confront themselves. That's what I want white people to do. And I've said this a long time ago, maybe on this podcast, maybe before I even started it. I don't want a white person to prove to me as a black person that they are not racist. In fact, I don't even want them to prove to me that they are anti-racist. I want those white people, whomever you are, or whoever they are, to do the work in their neighborhoods. You have a neighborhood watch where you are? Why don't you do a neighborhood discussion of racism and of white people not confronting it, not confronting the system that they benefit from? Do you want to do a neighborhood watch? Why don't we have that in your neighborhoods? You're so wondrously worried about hordes who are coming into your neighborhoods and committing crimes. We're all worried about that. All of us. And when you've got COVID-19 and you've got city governments and a federal government last year that didn't do diddly squat, jack crap about dealing with this, you have desperate people out here who steal, who break into your car if you leave your book bag in it, as someone in San Francisco did. Left his book bag in his car at 8 in the evening, and then got on next door and complained about it. It's that privilege. I'm not condoning someone breaking in your car, but you've been privileged for so damn long. Yes, he was a white guy. Oh, my book bag was stolen and nobody did anything about it. Oh my God, man. Can you hear yourself, man? For God's sake, man. George Floyd was murdered out here. He was executed Breonna Taylor, in her own bed, executed. Sandra Bland. Oh, did she make a signal? Did she signal before she changed lanes? Ended up dead. Dead. I could go on. I could mention a Tatiana Jefferson. I could mention Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. I could mention that and so much more. Jordan Davis, Eric Garner. And here's some white dude complaining. Oh, my book bag. Your possession, your bit of property got stolen. And no one did anything. Yeah. And Black Lives Matter. And George Floyd's was taken. Breonna Taylor's was taken viciously. And nobody has done anything about that. I'm not talking about money and settlements. No one's done anything about that. You and your book bag. See, damn it, that's the trouble. That's why white America is in so much deep doo-doo. You cannot even see yourself and your book bag. Don't even see it. That's what's so dangerous. That's what's frightening. You just don't see. But I think you eventually will. And I think it's going to be too damn late. Well. I still haven't finished with The Bachelor. Have I even started with The Bachelor? But I want to say something else. This is what happens when you have an unscripted podcast, right? This is what happens. But I do want to say something else about this wonderful, amazing, infuriating, uber privileged, we're better than you city called San Francisco that I'm a part of. Is that, again, a week ago today, last Saturday night, we had someone leave 2 children of his in a car at 8:45 at night. Saturday night last week, February the 6th, 2021. Left 2 children in his car. One of them was 4 years old. One of them was 1 year old. And he walks into a food place because it's takeout only, pickup only. So he picked up some order. And of course, hey presto, one of the bad guys, whomever that might be, one soul. I mean, this shows you how are you leaving the keys in your car? In your car. With your 2 children in there. How are you doing that? And call yourself a father. And call yourself a parent. How the hell are you doing that? And it's nighttime. And your kids are 1 and 4 years old. I don't care how old they are. How on God's green earth? Allah's green earth. Yahweh's green earth. Whomever you pray to or don't, green earth. Whether how an atheist's green earth, are you leaving your 2 children in a car at night or day? This is a death culture we're living in. This is a systemic whiteness. How are you leaving your 2 children in a car with the keys in it while you pick up your order of whatever it is you leave the keys to your car in the ignition and your 2 kids in that car? You couldn't see fit to bring your children with you? It's that lazy, privileged, autopilot aspect of people. Not just here in San Francisco, but all over this state and all over the country. And I'm talking about these richer peoples. And I'm betting you that this was a white man. I'm betting you. I don't know his identity. I don't. But I suspect he is. And yes, his 2 children were 2 Asian kids. So I'm making an assumption. Oh God, I shouldn't ever do that. That he has an Asian wife, which is a very common thing here in California, and particularly here in San Francisco. Heck, it's a very common thing all over the country of the United States. I'm not passing judgment on that. Again, love is love. I'm a firm believer in that. I got nothing. I don't oppose people loving each other. I know there's some people who do, but I don't oppose people loving each other. Whether it's a black man and a white woman and a, black woman, a black woman and a black woman, a white woman and a white woman, a white man and a white man, a black man and a black man, an Asian man and an Asian man, an Asian man and it doesn't, listen to me, a Latinx, I know, listen, transgender, listen, love is the key. In all of this, love is the key. But we've got to act as well. The fierce urgency of now. But I do think that this was a white guy. You didn't hear any criticism of him out here. Very little. If it was on message boards. But the horrible newspaper we have out here, the San Francisco Chronicle, which everybody in San Francisco knows is the worst newspaper ever known to humankind. It's a terrible newspaper. I don't even read the Chronicle barely. I'll tweet something about it here and there. It's a horrible news. It always has been. Even the San Francisco Chronicle knows it's a horrible newspaper. I know people who write for the Chronicle. I've spoken to them, not about their newspaper being horrible, but I know who they are, some of them. It's a horrible newspaper. I won't go that far because then that gets to scatological territory, and that's not where I'm trying to go. But I bet you anything. Why do I think that? And it's not to say that there aren't other parents that do this. Of course there are. There are black parents that have done some bizarre and just absolutely outlandishly dangerous things. There are other parents of all kinds of races. Look, I've told you about what's happened before, well, look, I think of, that white parent that left his child in the car, in a hot car to die, and a white woman's done this too. I think of Susan Smith, God damn it, taking the Lord's name. Susan Smith, go look up Susan Smith, the white woman who blamed a black man for the drowning of her 2 kids when she's the one that drowned her 2 kids. Please Google that or whatever it. And I'm plugging Google, and I do not mean to. And also Andrea Yates or Angela Yates. Go and look that name up as well. And I know there will be people say mental health. And I'm not saying that you discount that. I'm never saying that. But this is part of a system that my larger point is addressing here. Okay? And how that gets treated. Look at Charles Stewart's name. Stuart. Go and look that name up. And who got blamed? Who did Charles Stewart blame? Stuart, last name? Who did Charles Stewart blame in Boston? Who did he blame? There was a freaking, statewide, basically, hunt, like we're animals or something. Hunt for black men. Any old black man will do. Hunted Please look up that story of Charles Stewart and what he did to the woman he claimed that he loved, his wife, his white wife. Listen, let me tell you this, and Charles Stewart's white. Was white. Please look that story up. And also, look, I'm getting back to this. This guy in San Francisco, I'm guaranteeing you, because the privileged life, you walk around here, you think you know it, everything, you know it all. And the thing is about people in this town, some of them, there's some really good people here. I think some people are living a fantasy, though. They autopilot themselves into this fake reality, like the reality TV show The Bachelor and all these other garbage shows that give us this idealized, hyper entertainment, realized fakeness of this idealization of where we really are, projecting garbage, projecting a systems level of where we are, not where we actually are. This is what James Baldwin has talked about as well. Please go and watch I Am Not Your Negro. Please. It's on Netflix still. I cannot tell you how many times I have tweeted it out. The Popcorn REEL is the Twitter handle of yours truly. And I often don't ever fail to mention it. I tweet it out every week. Pretty much every week this year. At least once. At least once. So I do want you to understand. I think this guy, and if he's not, he's not. I mean, I know some of you are going to say, well, does it matter what race he is? It's the fact that he left it. Yeah, I know. It is. Didn't you not hear me 5 minutes ago say, how can you leave your children in a car? It's the action. Yes, I know it is the action. But my point is, beyond the heinousness and cowardliness and laziness of a so-called father, a so-called parent, is that had that been a black man or a black woman doing that, you would have heard a firestorm around here. You would have heard it not just here, you would have heard it around the country and maybe around the world. And there would have been all these instant accusations. What kind of parent are they? How can they do that? Do you know how many people can't have kids but want to have them? Do you know that some parents shouldn't be allowed to have children? Those would be the accusations you'd be hearing. Maybe you'd participate in that. That was my second thought. My second thought, dear listener, was that my second thought about last week was, how on earth are you leaving a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old in a car unsupervised? And then come to find out he left the keys in the ignition. And yes, I didn't finish off the story, but hey presto, someone comes along and drives off in the car. Drives off in the car with the 2 kids. That's the part I left out of all of this. Drove off with the man's car, with his 2 children in the back, and drove for 5 or 6 miles across San Francisco. Thankfully, the car was found with the 2 kids in it, unharmed. Unharmed, those children were. And so there was a kidnapping, and as yet, and I have not been reading it in the Chronicle, so I don't know, this person who stole the car, kidnapped these kids, and drove off with them, kidnapping, has not been found or caught or anything else, to the best of my knowledge. Now, that may have changed. I have not followed the story. But that's the thing. You're too busy looking in your phone. And when you're driving, you've looked down at your phone, haven't you? I know you have. You've looked, haven't you? You've looked. It's like that point when you're a kid and you, as I remember this very vividly, way back in the day, you look up at the top shelf of the newsagent. That's in England, the newsagent. You look up on that top shelf and you see those dirty magazines up there, don't you? And as a kid, you're wondering. You just look up there and you're like, can I just take a peek? Can I take a look? And you've looked at your phone, though, haven't you? At your traffic light. You're all up in that. And then you drive and you're kind of distracted because you've got so much going on in your life. And then you realize, I'm looking at my phone while I'm driving. Oh my God, what am I doing? And all of a sudden, you do these things, you're distracted, and you don't realize. You realized later that the coffee that you left on the top of your car has spilt all over the roof. And you knew there was something missing, but you couldn't realize what it was because you were so distracted. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case for the whoever it was, jackass who left his 2 children in the car. What a parent. Should we give him the award for Parent of the Week, the month? I mean, February isn't quite over yet. We're almost at the halfway point. But don't you think he's a leading contender for Father of the Month? What do you think that couple's going to be doing tomorrow on Valentine's Day? Oh, dearie me. I got to tell you, I don't know. And I was talking about this with someone offline. And we had this conversation about what were the permutations. Not justifying this guy at all. I'm simply saying we had a conversation. What were the permutations prior to that point that led this guy to leave his kids in a car? And we started to talk about the relationship he has with the woman, presumably, that he's married to. We had a conversation about that and more. And his wife told him, I'm assuming, to take the kids. See, look, 1 and 4 years old. You know, I can't think that they've been together for very long. Oh, I'm so evil when I say stuff like that because I might really be trampling on someone who's listening to this podcast. But that's no excuse that they may have not been together long. And like I said in the conversation with the person I had the conversation with offline, was it a case of him trying to lose his kids? Was it a case of that? Was it a kind of Charles Stewart? Oh no, not Charles Stewart. Susan Smith situation, except without the water in the river that her 2 kids drowned in? I mean, see, damn it. Nobody raises that question, do they now? Nobody. Nobody raises that question. Could this guy have been trying to get his kids lost? I mean, if you leave the keys in the ignition of your car, you leave the keys in the ignition of your car, and your 1-year-old and your 4-year-old in it. And it's also 9 o'clock at night, 9:15. I don't care what time of day it is, but it's 9:15 at night. There's a good chance that you are tempting fate. And you know you are tempting fate. Come on. But you see, no one raises that question. Because everyone's concerned about the children, as am I. Oh, I was hoping that they would absolutely be found safe and sound. I was hoping they were going to find the you-know-what who did this, who drove off with them. But what about the person who left the kids there? Shouldn't he be charged with something? Reckless endangerment? Child neglect? He is not. Listen, this was not a black man that did this. I'm telling you. And it was not an Asian man that did it either. I'm telling you, I'm betting you. Bet. I've already had some metaphorical money won when I predicted that the Tampa Bay Bucks would win that Super Bowl. I don't watch Super Bowl, as some of you know. I predicted it. I knew it was going to happen. That was not even a big deal prediction. Anyone could have predicted that. Anyone. Come on. It's not that dead. I don't want to throw bouquets all over myself here. But come on. And this is not about... Listen, I would be condemning anybody you know very well. I do not suffer fools gladly here. And I have been in the backsides of people who are black when they have done some stupid, pathetic stuff. I'm not beyond criticism either. I've called myself out on things. And that, if you are going to grow in this world as a person, and if you want change, you have to continue working on yourself. That applies to me. I'm not sit here and pretend that I'm above it all. You know, there's so many people you listen to on a daily basis, and they have this air that they know better than you, and that they are above it all and removed. But I always try to really look at what I'm doing or not doing. Because we have to grow. We have to grow. We cannot stay stagnant. I did these episodes, and I will continue doing them, about the kinds of things we need to do to be better selves. I hope you enjoyed or listened to the episode I did just yesterday about that. And what kind of person were you 10 years ago? I did that episode the day before that. Because this is also about development. This is also about how we can be better people as we try to save this world and change it. But we have to have rigorous examinations of these things, right? Because that was not a question that was asked by anybody except myself and the person I had a conversation with. Actually, I was the one that brought it up. I'll take credit for that. I'll toot my own horn. What if this guy was trying to lose his kids? There are evil people who do crap like that. And I don't believe that everybody is evil in that way, but there are some who are. There's some good folk and people who do good things and have good hearts, or hearts that are rooted in goodness. And there are people who, given that flicker of a chance, will do something like this and turn their backs and say, oh my God, my child has been kidnapped. And you know, what if I was walking down that street? What if you were and you're black? And he says to you, the guy that left the keys in the ignition, he didn't say anything to you, he said to the police, that black person over there. How many times did I do stories on this very podcast, dear listener, where I talked about white women, as I did talk about just this past month or so, who blamed a young black, it's 11-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy, 11, or teenager, whatever. I think it was 13. Oh, he stole my phone in the hotel in New York. And then she gets on and talks to Gayle King and basically tells Gayle King to shut up, sticks her hand up to her on the Zoom camera or whatever. Tells her to be quiet. Enough. The arrogance of these folks. Arrogance of these people. I'm telling you. And you don't see your own arrogance. You don't see it. You don't want to because you don't care. You have to watch I Am Not Your Negro. I cannot say it enough. You have to watch that film. You have to watch it. A society that will not examine itself is doomed. And furthermore, a society that will not change, a society that will not address reparations and give those reparations when it's given other groups those reparations, but it hasn't given them to black folk, is a country in jeopardy. The Bachelor, the host of The Bachelor, the white host who said all this stuff about, why are you pillorying this white woman? The white female contestant who was at this antebellum party. Antebellum means pre-war, pre-Civil War. In America, the pre-Civil War South. And you know what was going on in the pre-Civil War South. And one of the white female contestants of this Bachelor show from 2020, the Black Bachelor, And he's photographed with her, and there's a photo in the LA Times story of them smiling away. And yet, that particular white female went to antebellum parties in 2018 and never really said anything about them. And then when a black woman, a former bachelorette, I believe, the first black person, I think, as a bachelorette or a contestant, I don't remember, I don't watch the show. She, and I should get her name here so that you will take note of her name. Rachel Lindsay. She was the bachelorette. Rachel Lindsay. Lindsay. Was on a podcast. And she has a Bachelor branded podcast. She has a podcast for The Ringer. And she talked about this and criticized this white female, as rightly she should be criticized, about how are you not talking? Rachel Kirkconnell is the white woman. How can you not be talking about this with your attendance at these antebellum parties 2+ years ago, 3 years ago? Oh, goodness. And then, the host, the white male host, Chris Harrison. Oh, why are you jumping all over Rachel Kirkconnell? She's a poor lass. She's a poor white lass. Oh dear. Our sacred lamb is being criticized. Our sacred lamb, our sacred white lamb is being criticized. Oh, I feel so sorry for Gina Carano. Don't you, Chris Hayes? Don't you feel sorry for her? Oh, Chris Hayes. Oh, we shouldn't be picking on conservatives. Oh, God, it's not fair. And she has a film deal now, Chris, but it's not fair. She shouldn't be fired from this or from that. She's got a 3-picture deal now, Chris, or whatever it is. But she shouldn't be fired. It's like the Red Scare, you see. We're going to make false equivalencies out of this, and we're going to be rich. We're going to be rich. That's your system. That's your bachelor. And when a black woman named Rachel Lindsay, the former bachelorette, stands up like black women do and lead. I have a t-shirt in my collection in the podcast, Politicrat Daily Podcast collection, entitled Black Women Lead, period. I want you to buy that. I want you to look at it. It's on the-politicrat.myshopify.com. I'm going to post a link. I have links up. I'm going to post them. You know, you've heard the ads. You've probably seen the ad. You've probably looked at the store. And it's true, that t-shirt. I don't put things on t-shirts and design t-shirts with garbage on them. I put stuff on t-shirts that's real, that is happening, and that we can do, and we are doing. And there'll be more. Stay tuned. But when a black woman leads, look out. Because the world will be a better place. The world will be a better place. And when Rachel Lindsay stood up and interviewed Chris Harrison, the white host, and challenged him, Chris Harrison, not Chris Hayes this time, but Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, got all up in his feelings and got angry. And, oh my gosh, oh, how can you say this? Is it a good look? Oh my goodness, why are you criticizing this white female? The woke police. These systemic buzzwords like cancel culture. What about white dominance? How about that for a word? How about systemic anti-blackness and systemic anti-black racism? What about that for a buzzword? What about that for a reality word? For a reality, not a reality TV word, a reality word. How about that, Chris Harrison? You get all upset and then you issue the lame apology that you issue on Twitter. Oh, I took a stance and I want forgiveness. And this is, you've got to watch I Am Not Your Negro, please. Before I start giving it away, I'm not going to give that film away, that documentary. You've got to watch it. This childish, juvenile thing. Oh, I'm sorry. And and I'm all for apologizing. I preach it. But that is an empty apology. It was a public relations stunt, wasn't it? Oh, I'm so sorry. And I really realized I was insensitive and I just, oh, Bachelor Nation, I seek your forgiveness. And then, of course, it's just the white contestant, the Kilconnell or whatever her last name is, who is there, photoed with the Black Bachelor, the young brother. And she issues an apology. Oh, my ignorance was wrong and my ignorance was racist. Now I'm going to go read a book called White Fragility. Can I get back to chapter 6? The system's cultivating these BS apologies. There's a system behind that too, right? That tells her, oh, you've got to apologize. And the system behind the White Fragility book, right? The one that says, I'm going to make as much money off of white fragility as possible. This garbage. It's like Lean In. And I'm going to write my Lean In book. And I'm going to tell you that if you're a woman, you know what you can do? You have to lean in a little bit more amongst the table of patriarchists. That's what you got to do. And all your problems will be solved. Come on. It doesn't work like that. Dear listener, you know it doesn't work like that, and so do I. You and I both know it does not work like that. White fragility. Ooh. Like this is some kind of trendy little thing. This is not a trendy book, Robin DiAngelo, that you get to make hundreds of thousands of dollars on. I mean, you can make as much money as you wish. But don't do it off the backs of black folk. Don't do it off the backs of black people and claim that you are this anti-racist scholar who wants to teach your fellow white brethren something. And you hold in $60,000, $70,000 a pop seminars. And then the New York Times last summer, there's a big old expose on you. Oh, look, you have a right to make money. I'm not saying you don't. But that's the capitalist system too, isn't it? Making the money off of people and off of their history, off their enslavement. And you should be writing about anti-blackness. You should be writing about the system, not about the average white person who is racist. You should be writing about a system that supports that racism and that racist attitude and that swagger, oh so false, from many white persons that says that they think that they are better. And they are not. Oh, they're far from better. They are doomed, trapped in what they think they are, but what they know deep in their hearts that they are not. I didn't come to preach. I came to give you the real. This Bachelor thing is just a microcosm. Just a microcosm. Speaking of which, last evening, I had this incredible conversation. I hosted this a remarkable conversation yesterday. And I hope that those of you listening, I hope at least some of you participated, at least if you didn't ask a question, that you were in that Zoom chat room listening to the conversation I moderated and guest hosted for the Mechanics Institute Library. Oh my gosh, about Anita Hill, Professor Anita Hill. The documentary is called Anita Speaking Truth to Power, directed by Frida Lee Malk from 2013. By the way, it would be great if you watch that documentary. It's available on Tubi. Tubi. And you can find it on Comcast. If you have Comcast cable, you can just, if you have X1, type into your remote or say the word Anita, and it will come up. And it's Anita Hill's face will come up. You just press play and away we go. You can find it there. Or you can find, like I said, Tubi. Tubi. And you got to watch it. 77 minutes. It's a very quick documentary. Feels like longer though, but it's an hour and 17. Very quick. Quicker than one of my podcast episodes. At least some of them. You could probably watch that movie twice. In the space of time that I do some of these podcasts. But anyway. Look, here's what I want to say about it. You have to. I wish you were there. I wish you were there last night. Oh my goodness. But maybe, if you're good, you might get to hear the whole kit and caboodle. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.